Hi there, this is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video, we're discussing The Wonder, written by Emma Donoghue. And of course, I'll put a picture of the cover up in the video as well. So when I saw this book at the library and I read the blurb and looked at the cover, I had a few thoughts in mind that I'd expect from this novel. I expected a mystery, historical novel, paranormal, and also a psychological thriller, because that was promised on the cover. What did I get? A mystery? Yes, we got a mystery, and the mystery was quite good, and I'll mention that in the plot. Historic novel? Yes, we got a historic novel, and that was done really well, I thought. Paranormal? No, it's not paranormal at all. So if you're after a paranormal novel, this isn't for you. A psychological thriller? No, I think it tried to be one, but it failed, and I'll explain why in a section on plot. Well, the basic plot is as is described on the cover. There's a young girl in Ireland who seems to be surviving without eating food. And we learn that she's been surviving for 4 months or so. A nurse called Lib Wright, who trained under Florence Nightingale, has been asked to come to Ireland and be a witness for 2 weeks, just to make sure the young girl doesn't eat any food, just to see if the claims of her being able to survive without food and therefore being blessed by God or the angels is correct and true. This seems a bit strange and seems to go against what a person in the medical field would do. I'm not sure what their oaths or their beliefs in the medical fraternity for nurses at that time period of this novel were, but it just seems strange. The second witness, because they wanted to, is a nun who's had some sort of medical training or is also considered a nurse. So they're our 2 people who'll be watching this girl throughout the novel to make sure she doesn't eat. The novel is set in Ireland, in a small town in Ireland. The author does do a really good job of setting the scene. We do get a true feel of what the house is like and how the people live, of what the town's like as well. The setting is really dark, really dreary, very wet, and a lot of rain. There's a lot of peat. The author always mentions peat in this novel. Even when the main character Lib goes for a walk, she's walking around peat bogs. She even falls into one at one stage. So peat is a big part of the novel. So if we cast away all the wonderful descriptions of the setting and some of the people in this novel, it boils down to not much really. And to be honest, if the author didn't do such a good job of setting the scene, I really would have rated this novel a did not like. The whole novel is just basically waiting for the girl to eat or not. Other than that, the main character Lib and the young girl Anna do talk a lot in the novel. There's a lot of discussions about religion and about different beliefs, about riddles. There's a lot of enjoyment in riddles as the nurse Lib wants to encourage friendship with the young girl. There's not much else to the novel really, and I really struggled to find what the author was trying to convey in this story because it's not a thriller. So what else was the point of this story? And I was wondering, is the author trying to give us something more literary fiction? Is she trying to make a point about religious zealotry? Is she trying to make a point about education, science versus religion? Is she trying to make a point about English versus the Irish at that time? What point is she trying to make? And it just felt like there were all these messages kind of in the shadows a bit that the author was not trying to push forward too much because she wanted to focus on the mystery and the thriller element that wasn't there for me at all. I just don't get why the plot didn't deviate a little bit, have something else going on. It just seemed too little covered up in an historic drama, really. That's what it boiled down to. The ending? Well, I won't give the ending away, but I was left underwhelmed. And I was left not believing it. I didn't believe that the characters would behave in that way at the end. It didn't make sense to me. It didn't pass that smell test that in that time setting, a character in that position would do what happened. Well, the characters were better than the story. Okay, the characters were well drawn, just like the setting. So the author did a great job in creating good characters and a good setting. Lib Wright is our main character, and as I mentioned before, she's a Nightingale nurse, trained by Florence Nightingale. Now, I found it kind of interesting that they chose a Nightingale nurse, and the author kept mentioning just how wonderful Florence Nightingale is. There is a bit of history about Florence Nightingale that suggests she wasn't as wonderful as people said she was in all the things she did. Yes, she was a good nurse and looked after people, but there were apparently key components to her character that have often overlooked in history. So that was interesting as well. So Lib is a skeptic. She believes in science and what she can see. She also comes across a little bit self-righteous. Because she's educated and had a good upbringing, she came from a good family, she believes anybody who's uneducated, who came from a poorer family, is beneath her. You get that kind of sense in her character. And I found that a bit off-putting, to be honest. You do get a sense of her frustration and her stress in this novel, and just the fact that she wants to do the right thing at any cost, as it seems. So that comes across really clearly. So that's a great way that this character is developed. The only other character I'll mention is Anna O'Donnell. And Anna is the young girl that Lib Wright and the nun are asked to watch for 2 weeks. Anna in the novel is 11 years old, I think, from memory. I think the author's fallen into a common trap that many authors seem to fall into when writing children in novels. Anna is too smart, too clever, too above her years for her age, and that comes across time and time again in this novel. And I just found that Anna wasn't believable as a character. And this is probably the character that I was most disappointed in its whole. And that's a bit of a shame because Anna is a key part of the novel. She's a central character. I think having her be a bit older in the novel would have been better. And I just think that trap the author fell into. I'm not sure why the editors let that go through. I would have thought that somewhere in the process that would have been modified just to make it a bit more real. I picked up this novel thinking it was going to be wonderful, especially when on the cover it does mention that the author has won awards for other novels, but I guess not every book an author writes is going to be wonderful, and I've got favourite authors who have written books that I didn't really like. For this novel, I rate it 2 out of 5 stars, and I think I'm being generous by doing that. And the only reason I'm giving it 2 and not 1.5 is because, I did finish it, but it's the way the setting was written, that historic feel of Ireland, that for me is 2 out of 5 stars. The story itself, the plot, 0 stars for me. Most of the characters, 2 out of 5 stars. So overall, it's an average story. I don't even know if I'd read another book by this author again. Maybe I will give one a go, but I'm not keen. I'm not going to go out of my way. If I'm walking in a library somewhere or somebody offers me a book to read by the same author, I might pick it up and give it a go.